Some hospitals in America are haunted by reputation, not because there are bodies buried underneath them, but because the walls have absorbed too much human suffering. This hospital, the one at the center of today's case, had been operating for decades. During the day, it looked normal. Doctors rushed, stretchers rolled, elevators dinged like they always do. But at night, past midnight, the building changed. The fluorescent lights didn't feel like lights anymore. They felt like cold, watching eyes. Night shift workers began calling one particular wing of this facility the Death Corridor. If you didn't believe in ghosts, working there long enough would eventually make you reconsider. This is where the story of Daniel unfolds. Daniel wasn't born into a privileged home. He was adopted by an elderly woman known locally as Grandma Rose. She wasn't related to him by blood, but she raised him as her own. She fed him, bathed him, protected him, and gave him something no child survives without: safety. Grandma Rose and Daniel lived in a small home near the hospital. It wasn't the type of place with brand new appliances or carpets. It was the type of place where there were water stains on the walls, old linoleum floors, and the kind of kitchen where every pot and bowl was old, but still loved. Their income came from one thing: a noodle cart. Every morning, around 3 a.m., when most people in the US are asleep, Grandma Rose would wake up, boiled broth, chopped herbs, sliced pork, and push her cart to the hospital entrance. Rain or shine, even when winter winds dropped temperatures into the low 40s, she went. People in the neighborhood admired her. Doctors, nurses, and even strangers kept coming back to her stand for one thing: not just the soup, but the kindness she radiated. Among her regular customers was a physician named Dr. Vincent Coa, an ER doctor known for helping patients who had no insurance. He respected Grandma Rose, and on many mornings, he would sit with her on a small metal stool, drink hot tea, and talk about life before sprinting back inside when an ambulance arrived. For years, things looked stable, hard but survivable. Daniel grew up. He studied. He helped. He was quiet, polite, and Grandma Rose was proud of him. But there was someone else connected to this family, a younger boy named Kevin. Kevin was not like Daniel. He was bitter. He wanted money. He wanted status, and he blamed everyone for why he didn't have it. Kevin would leave home, disappear for months, even years, and then show up again demanding things, demanding money, demanding attention, like the world owed him something. And then one day, Kevin never came back. For a long time, life continued. The noodle cart continued. Grandma Rose continued. She wasn't wealthy, but she was alive. She was surviving. And then came one rainy afternoon, the day that would mark the beginning of everything that followed. It was Daniel's 16th birthday. Grandma Rose didn't have much money, but she wanted Daniel to have a cake, like every other kid his age. Something small, something he could blow candles on. So she left the house, wearing her old torn raincoat, walked through cold rain, bought a cheap little birthday cake, put it inside a thin plastic bag, and tried crossing the road. A truck lost traction on the wet asphalt. The impact was violent. The cake flew. Her body hit the pavement. Blood mixed with rainwater. The driver, Mr. Carter, jumped out of the truck, terrified. Grandma Rose was rushed to the hospital she had served for years, but she didn't make it, and the doctor who signed her death certificate that day was Dr. Vincent KHOA. After her funeral, the shock in the neighborhood spread fast. People were heartbroken. It felt wrong, almost unfair, that a woman who survived poverty for decades died not because of age, not sickness, but because of a birthday cake she bought out of love. But there was another shock. Something even more disturbing. Something that changed everything for Daniel. When legal paperwork came back, and property ownership papers were checked. Grandma Rose's house was not in her name anymore. It was in Kevin's. Nobody could explain it. There were no witnesses who could say when she signed anything. No neighbors remembered seeing a notary. There were no logical answers. But the law was the law, and the house legally belonged to Kevin, the same boy who abandoned the family for years. Daniel and Helen, the woman who helped raise him, had no choice. They packed their belongings and moved to stay with distant relatives. No home, no stability, just trauma. But time moves forward even when pain freezes the heart in place. Years went by. Daniel finished school and eventually applied for a night shift security job at the same hospital where Grandma Rose's noodle cart once stood. He wasn't trying to chase ghosts. He wasn't trying to be spiritual. He just wanted to feel close to her, even if only through memories. Every hallway, every elevator ding, every ambulance siren reminded him of her voice. He learned to walk the halls at night, from midnight to sunrise, in silence. At first, nothing unusual happened. A few flickering lights here and there, AC vents that made weird noises, wheelchair squeaks from the rehab floor. All things a rational person can explain. But then he met Samantha. Samantha was a nurse assistant who sometimes joined him on break. She was open-minded about spirituality. She believed in energy, spirits, and the afterlife. And one night, she told Daniel something that rattled him to the core. She said, "Daniel, I saw an old woman last night. She was standing near room 6, wet clothes, grey hair, staring at me, and she whispered your name." Daniel froze. He didn't talk. He didn't know what to say. He didn't want to believe it. But 2 nights later, the situation escalated. Samantha couldn't sleep. She kept seeing that same woman in her dreams. And every dream was the same. An old woman, soaked with rain, holding a smashed birthday cake, sitting in a hallway, staring straight ahead. Like she didn't understand she was dead. Samantha wanted to ignore it, but she couldn't. The nightmares repeated, over and over. The details sharpened. The surroundings became specific. The patterns of the hospital ceiling lights, the tile layout in the hallway, the hum of the oxygen pumps. It wasn't a symbolic dream. It was literal. It was this hospital, this building, this floor. And then Samantha said something that made Daniel's spine go cold. She told me, "Give the bracelet back to Daniel." Daniel instinctively grabbed his wrist. The bracelet was still there. A simple string band, nothing fancy but priceless to him. Helen gave it to him years ago, right after the funeral, and told him never to take it off. It wasn't jewelry. It was protection. But here's the detail that matters. Daniel had recently removed it in the shower. Just once. Only a couple of minutes. And that was when the nightmares began. Daniel wasn't sure he believed in ghosts before. But now, disbelief wasn't an option anymore, because that bracelet wasn't. Symbolic, It was a container with a small trace of Grandma Rose's ashes mixed into the core of the string to anchor her energy. Helen never explained that part. She only said, "Never take it off." Now the puzzle pieces were aligning. If Grandma Rose stayed behind to protect him, then who or what was trying to reach Samantha? If Grandma Rose was still present as a protective force, then Samantha's fear didn't make sense. Her nightmares were violent. They didn't feel like a grandmother calling gently. They felt like something trying to overwhelm her mind, trying to attach itself to her. So Daniel went to someone he trusted on night shift, Mr. Allen, another security officer. Mr. Allen wasn't a paranoid man. He was older, seasoned, the kind of guy who had seen too many emergencies and tragedies to be easily rattled. But when Daniel told him what Samantha saw, Mr. Allen didn't laugh. He said, "Years ago, there was a paralyzed patient in room 1. His name was Mr. Howard. They said he got electrocuted at home before being brought here. Every night, I patrolled that hallway. I heard someone groaning inside, but he couldn't speak. He couldn't even move. The doctors said nerves were fried. It never felt natural, Daniel. Not one bit." That detail mattered. Electrocution, and suddenly, Daniel made a connection so sharp he felt physically sick. Grandma Rose died after being thrown into traffic. But that wasn't the cause. That was the result. There was something before that, something nobody ever talked about. Daniel went back to Helen the next day, and he asked her directly, "Tell me about Kevin." Helen tried to avoid eye contact, but after a long silence, she told the truth. When Kevin returned home right before the tragedy, he wasn't just angry. He wasn't just drunk. He was violent. He accused Grandma Rose of hiding money, hiding wealth, sabotaging him, humiliating him. During an argument, he shoved her, and she fell backward into the wall where a power strip had been removed, leaving exposed wiring. From the socket, the electrical current hit her chest. She lost consciousness. Kevin panicked and ran, and that's when Grandma Rose, still half conscious, stumbled out into the rain, still holding Daniel's birthday cake, and was hit by the truck. So the death wasn't a random accident. It was a chain reaction rooted in rage, greed, betrayal, and blood. And Kevin's spirit, because he died later. ALSO didn't receive closure. He died electrocuted, the same way he caused Grandma Rose to fall. This was a karmic loop. Two souls tied by the same energy. Which meant the wet old woman might not be Grandma Rose. It might be Kevin using her form. This is critical in paranormal investigation. Gives evil spirits often mimic someone the target trusts to get access. Samantha wasn't being visited by a guardian. She was being groomed, infiltrated by a vengeful presence. And that's why her dreams were suffocating, not comforting. At this point, Daniel, Samantha, Mr. Allen, and Mark, another security co-worker, realized they were dealing with something big, something personal, and something extremely dangerous. They weren't dealing with a general haunting inside a hospital. They were dealing with a family haunting inside a hospital, and this haunting had bled across generations into the present, using the hospital as a convenient battlefield. But the group didn't want to act blindly, so they approached one last person, the only person they believed could confirm the truth without manipulation. Monk Gabriel, the same spiritual practitioner who had helped resolve the case of the 2 Parker children. 2 siblings murdered by their own mother, Mrs. Parker. In a previous episode, Monk Gabriel listened quietly, and then he said one sentence that changed the entire direction of the case. If that spirit is using the image of Grandma Rose, then the only way to expose it is to force it to speak while inside a living vessel. That meant one thing. They needed a controlled possession, a ritual with Samantha as the medium, not because she was chosen, but because the spirit had already fixed its eyes on her. This ritual, if done wrong, could kill her, but if done right, it would finally show who was behind the haunting dot: Kevin, Grandma, Rose, or both. They chose an abandoned treatment room, one that wasn't used anymore. It was in the old wing of the hospital, a place where the paint peeled off the walls, where fluorescent bulbs sometimes buzzed for no reason, and where the air always felt slightly colder than the rest of the building. Even though the thermostat was centralized, this room would become the ritual site. They waited until after 2 a.m., when the hallways were nearly silent. Samantha sat in the center of the room on a metal chair. She wore a plain white patient gown. Her hands rested on her thighs. Her breathing already sounded nervous, unsteady, even before the ritual began. Monk Gabriel began arranging items on a small, rolling bedside table. A bowl of water salt, gusmine flour sun-cooked, rice-white candlestick sticks of incense Daniel. Mr. Allen and Mark formed a small perimeter around Samantha. Helen stood in the corner, clutching her hands together as if bracing for a blow. Monk Gabriel lit the incense. The room filled with a faint, bitter smoke, the kind that lingers in clothing for days. He whispered, "Do not speak. Do not interrupt. No matter what voice comes out of her, let it finish." The candles flickered, and the hospital, for a moment, felt completely dead. No footsteps, no beeping monitors, no ventilator. Nothing, just silence. Monk Gabriel began chanting a low, rhythmic mantra, not in English, but in a much older language of spiritual practice. The syllables hit the air like slow drum beats. Samantha closed her eyes, her breathing slowed, her fingers twitched, her head tilted slightly, as if something behind her had placed a hand on her skull, gently, and began pushing it downward. Then she spoke, but it wasn't her voice. It was older, shaky, dry. Why? Why did you push me? Daniel's eyes widened. That voice belonged to Grandma Rose. He knew it instantly. Every inch of him recognized it. He took a step forward, but Monk Gabriel raised his palm to block him, silent, commanding him to stay back. Samantha's head slowly lifted, but her eyes were completely white. She whispered again, the words trembling. "You pushed me. You took the house. You left me on the floor, Kevin." She didn't say my son. She didn't say my child. She said Kevin, and just like that, the illusion broke. Monk Gabriel's voice cut through the tension. "It's not Grandma Rose. It's Kevin," wearing her voice. As soon as he said that, Samantha's face contorted like a predator caught in a lie. Her mouth twisted unnaturally. Her neck jerked. Her arms tensed. Then she laughed. A cold laughter, cruel, mocking. She deserved it. She deserved all of it. She never gave me anything. I deserved that house. I deserved a better life. She was nothing without me. Daniel's hands shook. The truth was undeniable. Kevin killed her emotionally long before she died physically, but then something unexpected happened. Samantha's body suddenly went still. Her head dropped, and when she raised her face again, the voice changed. It softened, it trembled, it hurt Daniel. "My son, don't cry. I am still here." That wasn't Kevin anymore. That was Grandma Rose for real. Daniel's knees buckled, tears filled his eyes. "Grandma, please let go. You don't need to stay because of me." Her voice, through Samantha, whispered, "I stayed because Kevin's anger chained me here. But your love allows me to leave." The lights flickered violently. The candles leaned sideways, as if a wind blew inside the sealed room. Samantha gasped hard, like someone punched all the air out of her lungs, and then collapsed. Forward, Monk Gabriel pressed a small talisman against her sternum and exhaled. "It is done." The ritual was complete. The spirit was identified, but the aftermath was not over, because something happened that nobody expected. Monk Gabriel told Daniel that one more step was required. If they didn't take that step, Kevin's rage would linger in the hospital forever. What was that final step? They had to return to the old house, where the outlet still burned into the wall, and go the next day. Daniel took time off from his shift. Samantha needed rest after the possession. Her pulse had stabilized, but her body still shook occasionally, like fragments of cold energy were still trapped inside her muscles. They all agreed that Monk Gabriel was right. If they didn't close the circle, Kevin's bitterness would keep echoing through the hospital forever. A haunting doesn't end simply because the ghost reveals itself. Sometimes the revelation is only the beginning of the release. Late that afternoon, the group drove to the old neighborhood, to the place where Grandma Rose's house used to stand. Wasn't a home anymore. It was abandoned, weather-beaten. The yard was overgrown with weeds up to the knees. The doors were covered in dust, paint curled off the wood, and the windows looked like dead eyes staring back at the world. And right there, in the center of the main room, still remained that black burn mark on the tile floor. The very spot where the exposed wiring had shocked Grandma Rose. Daniel stood, frozen in place. He didn't need a psychic to tell him this ground still held energy. He could feel it in the temperature drop, in the stillness of the air, in that heavy pressure in his chest. Monk Gabriel placed 2 simple candles on the floor, one on each side of the burn mark, then sat down. Cross-legged Samantha stood behind Daniel, wearing a thicker jacket, even though the weather outside wasn't cold. Daniel slowly walked toward the burn mark. He wasn't crying yet, but his jaw clenched, his eyes wet. Monk Gabriel instructed him, "Tell her what must be told." Daniel knelt. He placed his hand on the floor. His voice cracked instantly. "Grandma Rose, I know now. I know everything. I know Kevin pushed you. I know he betrayed you. But I don't want you trapped here anymore. You don't have to stay. You don't have to protect me like this anymore. I'm okay. You can go. I love you, but please go where there's peace." The room stayed silent. Samantha shivered. Helen covered her mouth, silently crying. Then the candle flames grew taller, unnaturally tall, as if someone drew in a deep breath next to them, and Daniel heard it, not with his ears, with his soul, a whisper right next to his right shoulder. "Thank you, my son." The flames instantly died. Warmth returned to the room. Monk Gabriel exhaled slowly. like he had been holding his breath for several minutes. He nodded. "She's gone now." Daniel didn't collapse, but his eyes, they emptied, not in a bad way, but in the way people look after they have just closed a wound they've carried for decades. For the first time in his life, his grief wasn't weight anymore, it was memory. They left the abandoned house, and for a week, everything felt normal. The hospital hallways seemed quieter. No more cold pockets of air next to room 6. No more flickering lights when Samantha stood alone, and Daniel, when he walked the night shift halls, didn't hear whispers calling his name anymore. He slept better. He ate better. Even Helen smiled again, something she hadn't done in years. It looked like this haunting was officially resolved. But one thing about the supernatural world is universal. In every culture, on every continent, when one spirit leaves, it creates an open doorway. And sometimes, another spirit steps in. Out of nowhere, Monk Gabriel received a letter from Brother Thomas, a disciple in another temple hundreds of miles away, stating that one of their senior practitioners had just died under strange circumstances. But the final words that man spoke before dying were chilling. "I saw a man in a white hospital coat standing at the river. He smiled at me, then disappeared." Monk Gabriel closed the letter slowly. He whispered, "Kevin." Daniel didn't cry when he heard. He only looked up at the grey sky and said softly, "Grandma Rose, Kevin, it's done now." That was the moment he thought the story was over. But he was wrong, because that same night, something new appeared. Something small, something soaked, something holding a wet doll. Around 3:15 a.m., Daniel was finishing his nightly paperwork. The ward was calm. No code blue alarms, no late ambulance sirens, just that low hum of the HVAC system, the kind of ambient noise that makes some people fall asleep and makes others feel watched. He stretched his back, closed his logbook, and took a slow walk down the west hallway, the same hallway that used to feel unnervingly heavy, but now felt strangely ordinary after Grandma Rose's release. The fluorescent lights above him flickered once. Just once, he stopped. He didn't panic, because flickering lights in hospitals happen all the time. But this flicker wasn't normal. It was a slow flicker, like the light was breathing. Daniel started to feel a chill, not in the whole hallway, but a narrow patch of air just a few feet ahead of him. He stepped forward. The chill followed, and then he saw it. Through the small rectangular window built into the door of room 3, he saw a silhouette, not adult-sized, child-sized, child-sized. A figure, no taller than a second grader, standing perfectly still, facing the hallway, staring directly back at him. Daniel's heart froze, but the detail that truly paralyzed him wasn't the silhouette. It was what the child was holding, a wet doll. Its hair dripped as if someone had just pulled it out of cold lake water. Daniel blinked once, and the silhouette didn't move. He slowly placed his hand on the metal door handle. He wasn't shaking, but his hands weren't steady either. The vital signs monitor inside suddenly beeped, slowly, deliberately, like someone gasping underwater. Beep, beep, beep. The ceiling light inside room 3 began projecting a strange ripple pattern, like light refracting off waves. Daniel whispered to himself, "Not again." He pushed the door open. Inside the room was empty, absolutely empty. No child, no shadow, no footprints, no wetness on the floor. It was as sterile and clean as any patient room after cleaning protocol. But the doll was now sitting in the corner chair, wet, dripping, as if someone had placed it there only seconds earlier. Daniel shut the door immediately and stepped back. He wanted to run, but he couldn't. His mind was already racing. There was only one case in the past that matched that symbol. The two Parker children, the children murdered by their own mother. Mrs. Parker, for life insurance money. The case they believed had been resolved. Months ago, Daniel now realized something horrifying. Grandma Rose's departure didn't just close a story. It freed up space in the other side of the hospital. The death corridor wasn't empty, it was waiting. Don't end, they rotate. One chain of suffering ends, and the next chain begins. Daniel exhaled slowly and looked at the doll, still, dripping water onto the tile floor. He whispered to himself, or maybe to the spirit that placed it there, I guess it's starting again, because in this hospital where life and death overlap every minute, there will always be a new patient, a new case, a new haunting waiting in the dark. And when the living turn off the lights and walk away, the dead Dan's single quotes, they stay, they remember, they return. Room 3 wasn't quiet anymore. Room 3 was calling, and Daniel, whether he wanted to or not, would be walking back into hell. Again